Hello and welcome to Zenatta Consulting's monthly webinar series. This is for June 2022. It's on Zoho Campaigns. It's our full product tutorial. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt. And, we had actually planned on doing this webinar on the kind of marketing automation, Marketing Plus product, but hasn't really received the number of updates and kind of fixes that we were expecting by this point in the year. So we did decide to just kind of focus on Zoho Campaigns. That's still what we end up recommending most of our clients use for any of this type of outbound email automation. So today we'll kind of just be walking through all those core steps and things that you need to do to get started in the product.
Yeah, this is, we're streaming this live to you here on June 21st, 2022. And there's a little chatter that marketing automation will actually be released this month. So, but unfortunately, we've had this scheduled and everyone was signed up. So here it is. We're going to go ahead and do the campaigns for you. We've got a kind of a quick agenda for you here today. I think we're going to cover, some of the basics like we did on the last time we did this, Tyler, was 2020, right? I
Yep,
think was the
would have
last
been
time we
back
did
in
this campaigns
2020.
one was in 2020. So a lot has changed for the better in Zoho Campaigns since that happened. So we are going to give you a quick product overview and settings. Not much has changed there. But then we're going to talk a little bit about topics that is completely brand new inside of campaigns. The sync is brand new. It's much better and more and improved. So we're going to go through that as well. Then we're going to talk about segments. Again, that is completely new as well. And then how you assign topics to those. Going to take you through sending a campaign. Really, that is unchanged pretty much, just a few little tweaks there. And then we're going to go through email workflows, and then we're going to take your question and answers. So I guess with that, Tyler, let's dive right into it, and we'll talk about product overview and settings. So when you go to campaigns.zoho.com and you access your campaigns, this will be the screen you see for the very first time. You can just jump right in and create a campaign, but there are some things you're going to want to do ahead of time. We're going to cover you through that. But this is your main board view. So if we're kind of going from running down the left-hand side of the screen here, you've got the dashboard. Inside of campaigns, you can go ahead and create a new campaign. We'll be taking you through that. Under the contacts view, you can view all your contacts. You can manage your various lists. You can set up segments. You can set up topics. We'll take you through that. You can handle your overall sync services. These are the various syncs you're setting up. You can handle your sign-up forms, contact scoring, contact tags. Under the automation tab, autoresponders and workflows, which are super, super important. We've got a lot of information on our YouTube channel around campaigns. Besides this, if we were to go into a lot of these things in detail, you basically this webinar would run about 4 or 5 hours long. So if you go to like zenatta.com, click on our resource library, while you're in there, go to campaigns. All of the videos we produce are listed there. One of them that's super important is using a workflow to automatically assign a tag, put someone in a mailing list, those kind of things. We'll kind of step you through some of that as well. So do look for some of those more detailed tutorials that we've got there. Under the e-commerce side, you can go ahead and connect Zoho Campaign with Shopify, WooCommerce, any of those kind of things as well. Under the library, this is where you're going to keep basically images you use all the time, email templates you're repurposing, workflow templates, form templates, various attachments. This is basically a repository of those digital assets. And then you can run various reports on your campaigns once they are up and running. One of the other major things you're going to want to know when diving in, kind of looking at Zoho Campaigns, is you're going to want to go into the settings, especially when you're setting this up for the very first time. Here you've got a general profile that you can set up. You've got your overall company details, so you can put that basic information in here as well. You will also, all your basic notification settings. So do you want to allow email notifications? How do you want to set up notifications for your mailing list? Do you want to make, for opt-in, list deletes, basically any of those kind of notifications you can set up there as well. One of the key ones on here, though, are going to be your overall compliance settings. So this is where you can turn on GDPR. So if you are over in the EU, you will want to turn this on. If you're in any type of medical a company doing anything with medical, you'll want to comply with HIPAA, and you can set on those HIPAA compliances as well there. So that's kind of a very important tag. Also, you can manage your opt-in. Are you going to enable double opt-in? What's that mean? That means a person signs up for your newsletter. They then get an email, and they actually have to click that email to confirm that they are in fact signing up for your newsletter. You can handle those settings from there as well. Manage any users, roles, and privileges. It's pretty straightforward inside campaigns. So maybe in your organization, you have several people that will be using it. What is their access going to be? What can they see? What can they do? Um, Set up your overall campaign policies. Deliverability is a really, really key one that you're going to want to see here. So, you manage your senders. Who are the campaigns coming from? Who are the emails coming from? One of the more important ones you're going to want to look at here is your actual domain authentication. So if you are actually sending this you want it to come from your domain, so from Zenatta.com, you're going to need to go in and do your SPF and your DKIM settings. Those are very simple settings that you'll basically get some keys. We'll click on the setup here. It's going to give you these basic keys. These are records you're going to add into your DNS. So if you're unfamiliar with what your DNS is, you're going to want to talk to the person who manages your domain, maybe manages your website. They're going to want to log into the back end, go into your DNS settings, and they're going to want to add these two records into your DNS settings. When they do that, you're basically going to look at on this screen, you're going to have little green check boxes here. Everything's going to be verified. What does this mean to you? This means that your campaigns are going to be delivered. Your emails are going to go through. They're not going to go into a spam folder. This oftentimes people forget to do this. They don't get this set up properly. They send out their first campaign. They have a horrible open rate. Why? Because maybe it's just been going into spam. It's not properly being delivered. So of all the settings, when you're looking at it, this is probably one of the more important ones you can do as domain authentication as well. You also can set up basic header and footer for all of your email templates, your campaign templates. They're going to go out. You can set up some custom fields so you can manage your database a little easier that way. You can look at audit logs. Have things gone out? Where are they? So you can kind of deeply look through what's going on with all of your campaigns. On the integration side, you've got the apps folder, and this is basically all of the Zoho applications that you may want to connect and non-Zoho applications as well. So there's quite a few here. You can filter through them, and I think Tyler's going to talk a little bit about these in a minute. But those are just the overall apps. You can go to the Zoho Marketplace. So when you're looking at apps, those apps, they've already got built-in integration. They're ready to go. Maybe you're not finding what you're looking for there. You go over to the Zoho Marketplace and you'll have some other different applications you can look at there as well. And then, of course, we've got various integration platforms. So if you're not familiar, Zoho has a product called Flow, and this is kind of a third-party API connector that you can use. It's very similar to Zapier. They do support Zapier and they support Zoho Flow. So if you can't find something you're looking for, odds are using one of these two services, you'll be able to make that connection directly with Zoho Campaigns. That is kind of the key ones there. You also have APIs and webhooks. Those are going to be for your developers. You really won't touch those very much. But when going through your settings, those are the key things you're going to want to look at to get set up out of the gate, especially going ahead and getting that domain set up, getting your users set up, getting your senders set up. Once you've got that, you're going to be ready to go and you'll be able to send a campaign. One of the things that was recently added during this upgrade, so Zoho did an upgrade to campaigns back in December of 2021. Tyler's going to cover kind of what those big changes were. They kind of had to pause it. We'll explain that later on. But when they did that, they kind of paused that. They brought it back just about 2-3 months ago. And one of the big changes that they did is they're basically allowing you to now have separate topics that you can set up inside of a campaign. So let's talk a little bit about managing topics inside of Zoho Campaigns. So one of the problems with the previous version of campaigns is that if you were sending out 5 or 6 newsletters, or I'm sorry, 5 or 6 different types of marketing materials to various people. So maybe you have one that was about, hey, here's all of our upcoming webinars. And you'll have one that are actually new product announcements, one that are you're sending out, you know, special offers to people on your products or services. One that is has to do with someone who owns your product or service and you're sending out information about that product and service. Maybe you've got an update, maybe those kind of things are available. Maybe it's an announcement as to you're going to be taking your servers down for a day and that product will be offline. um, the problem was everybody was lumped into the same category, that they either subscribed to the information you were sending out as Zoho campaigns or they unsubscribed from everything that was in Zoho campaigns. So that could be pretty problematic because maybe someone just didn't want to get your little daily announcements that you send out, but they wanted to subscribe to your weekly newsletter, or they definitely wanted to get product update announcements. Well, once they unsubscribed, what they didn't realize is they were unsubscribing from everything and they would never get any campaign emails from you again. So Zoho has solved that now by adding in topics. So under contacts, you will see manage topics. And we've set up a basic one here. This is for marketing. So anything and everything that maybe you want to send out, everybody who's in the database would get the marketing emails. But maybe you wanted to set one up specific to the newsletter. So you could create a topic called newsletter. And once you save that, that will now be a new topic that is going to go out. And when someone hits that unsubscribe button, they're going to have a choice. Do I want to unsubscribe from all marketing materials, or do I want to subscribe from the weekly newsletter? Maybe you have a topic called daily updates or daily offers. You could have all of these various topics now. So now when a person goes to unsubscribe, they're just going to unsubscribe from that particular series of campaign that you're sending out to them. So super helpful, major new feature here in Zoho Campaigns 2022. And with that, we're going to go a little deeper, and I'm going to flip it over to Tyler, who's going to talk a bit about integrations and segments.
Awesome. Alrighty, so like Brett was mentioning, one of the big things that has changed within Zoho Campaigns is the way that it actually syncs over to your CRM. Generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, we're always going to be using campaigns kind of as an extension of CRM. Regardless of what people are signing up for and where they're coming from, it's always a best practice to have them start in the CRM and then pull them over into campaigns to actually do your marketing. And so, if you're familiar with campaigns, the sync services is kind of the main way that you're going to actually access those features. So, under contacts and sync services, we'll open that up now. We'll see I've already connected the CRM here. Really, if you haven't connected it yet, it's just going to give you a button that says associate new account. It's going to do a little pop up and you say, thumbs up, and then it's got your accounts connected for you. Here I've set up one sync already, just so that we already will have some contacts inside of campaigns to work with. I didn't want us to have to wait for it to sync. But in this case, what we'll do is we'll set up a second integration to actually pull from the contacts module. So I'm going to take just a really quick field trip over to CRM to take a look at kind of how we have it set up. So over in campaigns, I've already synced our leads module here. So our leads, pretty simple, just some example data here. We'll note that really the important field is this interests field. So here I have a multi-select where I'm basically identifying the different types of things that a certain lead is interested in. And then I have that same kind of setup here inside of contacts, right? So I have my names, my email, and then these interests. And so similar to how we kind of set up a sync with really any application, on the campaign side, we'll basically just need to go through and delineate what we want to take from CRM and where we want to put it inside of campaigns. So here again, under our sync services and contacts, I'll go ahead and add a new sync. So here, one thing that's different than it used to be is that you used to be able to set up, many different syncs all to the same module inside of CRM. Now the way that it's set up is that you sync the module as a whole, and then use some of that data in campaigns to create segments. So here I'm kind of looking at our list. I've got contacts set up. I don't want to sync it to the all leads mailing list. Maybe I do want to have kind of two discrete lists for leads versus contacts. You technically don't have to sync it to a list at all, but it's generally a best practice just to keep things clean inside of campaigns. So I'll make a new mailing list and I'll just call it all contacts. Again, really, we're only going to need those two. Everything else is going to be driven by segments, which I'll show a little bit later. So now kind of one new thing with the sync and kind of new to campaigns as a whole is that contacts are actually identified as either marketing or non-marketing. Um, by default, you're going to want to choose marketing because if you don't, you won't be able to send emails to them. Only marketing contacts are going to count towards your kind of subscribers limit inside of campaigns. So if you're on Zoho 1, you'll have that kind of 5,000 per user account. So only these marketing contacts are actually going to count towards that. And now, last thing we'll do here is select which topics we want them to be associated with. In this case, I'm going to choose marketing, kind of our most broad topic here, so that we can set up, just to have them in our general marketing bucket. And then I'll show you how you can kind of selectively put people into topics in one of our next sections here. So the last little kind of advanced options are just kind of determining what you want to do with people who have opted out. Generally speaking, you want to just leave this as is. So if anyone has already opted out in CRM, there's no reason to pull them into a mailing list in campaigns. You want to honor their opt out and not start sending them emails again. Um, and then lastly, kind of a similar thing is just, do you want to remove them completely rather than just exclude them from your mailing list? Again, in general, this is always how you want to have it, is just leave these on. And so now we've set up kind of the initial part of our sync where we've chosen what data we're going to get, and where we're going to put it. Now we actually need to go through and map the specific fields from each module that we want to pull from. So some of the ones that we always want, right? We're always going to want to pull in the first name from CRM. That's automatically going to associate it to a field called first name because that's already set up inside of campaigns. And then for our use case here, we're going to keep it really simple, but we do also want to pull over this interests field. Now, I already have a custom field set up for interests, so I went ahead and associated that. If you didn't have a field yet for something that you wanted to pull, maybe you wanted their industry, the company size, you can always just check this new field box and it'll go ahead and add that for you so that you don't have to go into the back end of campaigns and do that. So I'll go ahead and add that here. Now, for our purposes today, we're not going to focus much on the accounts and deals, but I do just want to highlight this. If you are pulling from the contacts module, you can actually choose to pull data directly from the related account, as well as from deals that are underneath that contact. Now, the way that it's going to work with deals could be its whole own video, and we'll probably make a separate kind of training guide on that. It's a little interesting. When you have one contact and multiple deals, there are a couple best practices that you'll have to keep in mind. But for our sake here, really the primary things that we're going to need are this data directly from the contacts record. So I'll go ahead and initiate that sync. Now that is going to take just a little bit of time. It's going to run in the background here. We don't need to worry about that for the time being. But what I do want to show you is kind of how it will look once it's done. So if I jump over to the manage lists here under contacts, we'll see nothing's been added to contacts yet, but we do in fact have some leads set up. And so this is from our other sync that we pulled earlier. So it actually went ahead, it pulled in those contacts, and we have them in here with their email addresses and their various product or kind of subscription interests. So those are really all you have to do, right, to pull in your CRM. I will highlight, you can pull in custom modules from this as well. So maybe if you're in real estate and you have a separate module for brokers or, attorneys that you work with, you could pull them in as a custom module and email out to them all the same. But really for most people, this is all you're going to have to do is just set up the leads, set up your contacts, and then you are off to the races. And really those next steps here that we'll jump into in a moment are going to involve how we're going to actually get them into segments, basically grouping them based on their field data, and then how we can use segments to actually drop them into a particular topic. Alrighty, so let us get right into it. So segments here, if you have worked with campaigns in the past, essentially what we're doing with segments is similar to how you used to set up the campaign syncs. What you used to do is you'd come into your CRM and you'd create kind of like a filtered list inside of your contacts or leads where you'd be using your field data. So I would do something like, if interest contains newsletter, then put them into one of my custom views. But what the team at Campaigns decided kind of smartly is that really a lot of that stuff should just be managed inside of Campaigns. What that led to is, you just have a ton of these different views and they're all just sitting there and no one ever touches them inside of CRM. They're only there to be used for your marketing. But then if anyone who had access in CRM ever went in there and deleted it because they didn't know it was being used or they tweaked it, it could mess up your ongoing syncs. So now essentially what we're doing is doing that same type of field logic, but we're going to do it just natively inside of campaigns. So here I'm going to go ahead and create a segment. The only difference between a segment and a bulk segment is that a bulk is going to happen automatically. Most of the time you want to use segments. One case for a bulk segment would be, maybe you pulled in their shipping state and you just wanted a segment for anyone that's in any of the 50 US states. If you do a bulk segment, it's just going to automatically spit out a segment for every single option in the field. For our case, we'll go ahead and do just a single segment here. And we'll make this segment the newsletter segment. And it's going to end up tying into how we get them into that topic. And so here, it's really similar to what you would do in the CRM. I can pick from any of the various fields that I have inside of campaigns. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and grab the interests field. And now here, an important thing, especially if you're kind of using the same methodology with a multi-select, is that we want to use contains. Again, looking at our data on this side, while it can equal newsletter exactly, it could also equal newsletter and product information. And so to make sure that we actually capture everything that is, that references newsletter, we'll use one of these contains options. And then we'll just go ahead and say, if it does contain newsletter, consider that part of this segment. And so now kind of looking at the menu option here, it's now been created. It's kind of sitting here ready for us to use. If we open it up and actually go into contacts, we'll see that it's dropped in our contacts here that have that associated. Now, one important thing to note with your segments is that they don't really care what mailing list something is in, right? So we'll see some of these are from our leads list and some of these are from our contacts list. And that's actually fine, right? Because if someone signed up for a newsletter and they're still a lead, you've never talked to them, or they could sign up for your newsletter and they're someone who you've done, 5 or 10 different engagements with. And all the same, they should be getting associated into this segment so that we can actually mail out to them properly and specifically, right, based on what they're interested in. But so really to make that work, there's one more thing that we need to do, and that's going to be under the workflows and automation section here. So the workflows inside of campaigns, kind of their primary use that most people are going to use them for is sending out a series of drip emails, right? But they can do a whole lot more than that. We actually have a specific video set up on this on our YouTube channel, but I did just want to cover this quickly so that everybody can see it. What we'll show here is how using this segment, we can actually automatically add people to a topic. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a workflow. I'm just going to create a new one here. I'm going to do a custom because I'm not actually going to send any emails at all with this. And most of these templates are going to be based on, sending out emails. So I'll do a custom workflow here. And I'll call it newsletter topic assignment. And I'll create that. And so I'm going to do kind of a deeper dive into these later in the webinar here, but essentially we'll have a trigger condition. So what's going to enter a contact into this workflow? So for us, that will be entering a segment. And so for us here, we'll choose our segment and we'll say, if they're in the newsletter segment, send them down this path. And now here we can choose if it should only count for new people, people that are already in the segment now, or new people going forward and the existing. 9 times out of 10, you're just going to leave it on this top option unless you have a specific reason not to. So I'll go ahead and save that. And now we need to tell it is what we want it to do when they enter this segment. And so again, right, we could send emails, we can send SMS, but that's not what we want to do here. All we really want to do here is go into the subscription management option. We'll configure that. And we want to associate them with a topic, right? So right here, we can actually do this action without ever sending them an email, just to drop them into that particular topic group. Other things you could do is unsubscribe them, mark them as non-marketing, unsubscribe them from every topic. But for our use case, this is really all we need to do, right? Is essentially just drop them in. Once they enter the segment, just automatically associate them across to that topic. So I'll go ahead and just activate and launch this. And it will now be kind of running in the background for us. And so every contact that was part of that segment before is going to automatically become associated with that topic. And then any new contact that comes in is also going to flow just directly over to that particular topic. And so this will just kind of keep that list clean for you, make sure that everybody who kind of runs through this ends up where they need to go and gets opted in for the particular communications that they need. And I think with that, we're kind of ready to show the actual sending of an email. A little bit of setup to do beforehand, but now that we've got some of these things dialed in, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Brett, and we can run through the next steps.
All right, let's talk a little bit about sending campaigns. So when you go to your dashboard, the first thing you're going to see is create a campaign. If you were to go to campaigns and you want to send an email campaign, you will see create campaign. You also, by the way, you'll notice under here you have social campaigns and SMS campaigns. Yes, Zoho handles both of those, or Zoho Campaigns does. If you want to have a campaign around Facebook, you can do that here. If you want to have a campaign where they're getting text messages, you can do that here. You actually can have combination campaigns through workflows. Tyler can talk about that in a little bit as well. Um, all the things that we are covering here, if you are just tuning in, you've never watched one of our webinars before, you're not familiar with us here at Zenatta Consulting. If you do head over to our website, Zenatta Consulting or zenatta.com, and you go over to our resource library, you will be able to find basically tons of videos and articles on virtually every Zoho product. So if we look here under our resource library and you click into campaigns, you will see the resources that we have actually put together. Almost all of these are all YouTube videos that you can go ahead and look at. So under the basics, you have things like, how to send a campaign, which I'm going to cover right now. This was 2021. There's been a few small tweaks to it, but sometimes we go into a little more detail in these videos than we do if you are just watching our webinar, because there's only so much we can cover in an hour. So head over to our resource library there, and you basically can find, hopefully, maybe it's just some detail as to what you're looking for. Additionally, all of these have got bookmarks in them, so you can just jump right to the point that you want to get to without listening to myself or Tyler blather on about maybe stuff you don't care about. And if you haven't also, if you go over to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Zenatta, all of our videos are there as well. So go ahead and subscribe. You'll never miss one of our videos. And remember, every time we get to 1,000 subscribers, an angel gets its wings. So you're doing, you're helping. It's a good cause. So head on over there and subscribe. With that bit of information, I kind of want to go a little bit now into setting up this campaign. You are just going to click Create Campaign. Oh, let's go back to email campaigns here. We're going to do an email campaign. We'll create campaign. What type do you want to send up? A regular email, A/B testing, RSS feed, connected to Zoho Meeting. This is just going to be just a straight up regular email. You're going to have to give this campaign a name. So earlier I created a newsletter topic, so I'm just going to call this the weekly newsletter. And I'm going to select the topic of newsletter here. One quick hint on this: if you've gone through and you've created all of your topics and you then immediately go in and you want to set up a new campaign and you're trying to associate it with a topic, they're not going to be there. You'll need to refresh your page first. Once you refresh your page, you'll be able to see all of the new topics you've created. So I'm going to go ahead and select newsletter now, save and continue here. And now you are in the basic newsletter information. So you need to go ahead and give this a subject line. You can have a pre-header. Pre-headers are things that you'll see if you're looking at your inbox. Oftentimes you'll get an email from somebody. It's got the subject line and it's got this header like, save 50% today only. And when you click into that email, save 50% today only is nowhere to be seen. That's the pre-header. Um, You can go ahead and get your pre-header in there and go ahead and get your weekly newsletter in. Who is this going to be sent from? In this case, we're in a demo account here. So normally this information would fill in, but in this case, we'll put my name in and we'll go ahead and save that. So it's going to come from me. You also can make it come from the CRM owner address. What does that mean? I'll go back to that here a little bit. If you choose the CRM owner address, it's basically going to go ahead and look at the record in the CRM, the contact record, and say who, or the lead record, who owns this. So maybe you've got 10 different people that are working on various things. They're communicating directly with those leads. They're communicating directly with those contacts. And so when this comes out, you just don't want it to be from someone in your organization they've never heard of. You want it actually to be from the person who they're communicating with. So if you set this up that way and you say the CRM owner's email address, well, then that is who it's going to come from when the newsletter is sent out. Now we're going to go ahead and add recipients. You've got a couple of ways here. If you choose lists, it's going to basically be any of the lists that have been pulled in. So if I click on this, earlier Tyler did an all leads and an all contacts. It looks like that's still syncing, or I haven't refreshed the page. So you could choose to send it to all leads and all contacts. We're clearly not going to want to do that. We're going to want to go ahead and send this to a specific group that we've set up. So I'll go into segments now. And under segments, I can choose this newsletter segment. So the advantages of segments. Now this person is getting this. Maybe I've already put, these people are also getting, maybe we've got a daily update. They don't want to get that. They can unsubscribe from this. But now we've got this in the specific newsletter segment. You go ahead and save that. And now you've got all the basics are done. And now you just need to go ahead and create your content. Zoho gives you quite a few ways of setting up your content. You can go ahead, if you've got saved templates, remember over here in our resource library, we have templates. You can pull one of those. Maybe you've got a graphics team. They've created this beautiful HTML template. You can pull it directly from there. They've got some pre-designed templates. If you go and take a look at those, Zoho's given you a whole bunch of templates that you can just kind of start from and customize and build from here as well. So that's one way of setting up your templates. Just start with something that's already done. Additionally, when looking at your templates, you've got some very basic templates. So these don't have any graphics in them. They haven't done anything. You can just start from scratch here and go ahead and choose something that's going to work for you. Then they give you, they give you basic image layouts and text layouts. So it kind of makes it easy to choose the appropriate, maybe something, if you're sending out a newsletter, you'd want it to be broken down in a certain way. You can start with that. Also, you can jump directly into an HTML code editor, and this is manual. So if you jump into that, you're basically working in straight HTML. If you're good at that, you can do that there as well. You can go into a plain text editor. Very, very simple email, no images, no logos, just plain text. And you also then can do an import upload of HTML. So maybe you're migrating from another marketing automation platform, you're migrating from MailChimp, you're migrating from Constant Contact, you've got all these newsletters over there, you love them, you can grab that HTML and you can just upload it in here, and then you've got the basics. Now you are going to need to go in and you're going to need to change any insert tags. Maybe, the tag for your newsletter says, "Hello, Brett, comma." Well, the tag that MailChimp is using to drop in Brett is going to be different than what Zoho Campaigns is using. So you're going to want to make some small changes if you do it that way. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and just choose a plain text editor for this. And it's going to bring this up. Here you've got your merge tags over on the side. So one of the things you can do is you just hit, actually you can just click these in. So I'm going to go ahead and add this one. We'll copy that, drop it over here. I want to get their first name in. Here is your newsletter. Enjoy. And then when you've got the entire newsletter completely built out, you will then just go ahead and do save and next. And when the first few times you're sending out your newsletter, it is actually going to go for approval. So you can set it up to send it. We'll talk about that, but it'll always go for approval. Zoho is really good about that. It usually comes back in anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. So you usually don't have to wait very long, but the first few times they're going to want to make sure that you're not sending out material that is inappropriate that could take you off some sort of spam list. All right, now that that's saved, it takes you back to this screen, and you will see here you've got your basic newsletter in. You have earlier in the settings, we talked about your footer. So this is kind of be the basic footer that's in there. You will definitely want to adjust your footer to make it look pretty. And now you have basically, you are ready to go. You also have some advanced options down here. Uh, you can add you can track plain URL text. You can track URLs using Google Analytics. You can track your video views using a third-party software called Wistia. You can have reply tracking, all of these various things. You will want to make sure that the campaign is also created in CRM if you're using Zoho CRM. You can just, when you're in the CRM, you can look at it. You can also definitely want to have this update member status in CRM. So when they unsubscribe, it's automatically going to update them in the CRM. So make sure that these are checked as well. Super, super important. And then, as I said, you're going to have to go ahead and send this for review. And then once you send it for review and it's approved, you'll actually have the ability to schedule this. Do you want to go out immediately? Do you want it to go out in a week? Do you want to go out on a specific day and time? Highly recommend you look at that. There's a lot of research on when the best time to send a campaign is, or an email newsletter is. So you're going to want to take a look at those. When do people actually sit down in front of their inbox and they have time to read these things? So take a look at that. We don't send our weekly newsletter out at the preferred time. Most of the time, if you look at it, it's something like you want to send out at a Tuesday at 10 o'clock Pacific time kind of thing, or a Thursday at 10 o'clock Pacific time. It's very similar to webinars. It's when people are available and they're doing things. We send ours out at 6 a.m. Pacific time every Monday morning, but we've been doing that now for 5 years. So everybody expects it and they look forward to it in their inbox first thing in the morning. If you build a big following like that, you can kind of schedule it that way. So anyway, you'll have the ability then to schedule when it goes out, but you will have to send for review after a while. This will go away. Zoho will trust you. They've looked at several of the content you're sending out, and you are good to go. So that is pretty much all there is to sending out your first campaign. And with that, I'm going to flip it over to Tyler, and he's going to talk about some really cool stuff, email workflows.
Yeah, let's do it. Alrighty, so with that, let us jump right in. So earlier we had used workflows to associate our segment with a particular topic. That is one big use case for workflows, like list management, topic management, really any type of if-then statement inside of campaigns. But one of the biggest things that you're going to use workflows for is to create kind of long form drip email sequences. So some applications will call these journeys, sequences, drips, right? There's a lot of different terms for it. I think Zoho is the only one who calls them workflows. So some people, when they start up the application, they're looking for sequences or journeys and they can't find them. It's because they named them workflows. So again, here, we'll go ahead and create a new workflow, and we're going to make this a custom workflow again. I will highlight, now that we're talking about email, you can definitely start from one of these templates and kind of make some adjustments. Sometimes it is helpful to see kind of, what does a normal welcome series look like? What does a normal product trial look like? And so, you can surely start from this as a kind of baseline and then make some adjustments. For us, we're going to go ahead and just make a custom workflow. And let's say we wanted to do a quick little welcome series for the newsletter. So, when you first sign up, sure, you're going to get that email once a week, but maybe for the first, 6 weeks, we're going to send you something extra every other week, something new or something different that might not be exactly the newsletter. And so again, what first thing we'll need to do is associate how we want to trigger or start this workflow. There are a lot of different ways to do that, right? It could be a certain form being submitted, entering a list or a segment, a big one or something like a date field, right? So something like, we closed a deal with a customer 6 months ago. So on day 6 month plus one, we want to drop them into this series of emails to kind of re-engage them for some future business. Other things too, if you are using e-commerce and kind of tying that in, you can do abandoned cart workflows, purchase follow-ups, or kind of product interest follow-ups, all just through these workflows. So a lot of different options there of how to actually get someone in. But for us, we're going to use this segment entry. This is the most common one that you're going to find yourself using, kind of just based on what type of contact they are. So similar here, I'll do our newsletter, and we're going to include all contacts that are a part of that segment and any new that are added in the future. Now, I'll show real quick the kind of process section here. So if you are doing any type of kind of longer form or kind of crazier implementation here, you might pull in some extra fields and do some conditions. Maybe I want to say if they are in the West Coast versus the East Coast, kind of branch them based on their state or their zip code, right? And so you could add things like these conditions and use any of the fields that you have, which, are likely going to be syncing over from the CRM to essentially set up that type of branch, right? So I could say if state contains, X, Y, and Z, then go ahead and put them down this path versus the other. In this case, we're going to go ahead and delete this, and we'll kind of focus on the main thing that you'll be doing, which is sending emails. So I'm going to go ahead and drag in the send email action, right? Because this is a big one. Now, of course, you can do an A/B test natively through here. You can do a survey through here and an SMS as well. But for us, we'll keep it simple. Now, under the create message, we're not going to spend a lot of time here because this is exactly what Brett just showed on setting up a campaign. It's the same thing. You're going to associate it to a topic. You're going to define your subject line, going to add your sender, and then add your content, and then get it approved, right? So not much that we need to work through here. Save you the time of just watching me do that same thing. But the main thing that you'll find that gives you a lot of flexibility and control here within the workflows is the ability to actually track and actually branch based on responses to an email that you've sent, right? So if I click that response button, what you'll find is that we have a lot of different options where we're able to branch, not based on a field that's in the contact, what state they're in, what newsletter they're a part of, but actually based on how they reacted to this particular email that they received. And so the big ones that you're going to do, right, a lot of the time are going to be a branch if they open it, and then a branch if they clicked on a specific link. We'll also want to include is a branch for delivered, because that means they received it but did not open or click it, right? So if you don't include delivered, you'll only continue if there's an open or a click of a link. And so now what we'll see is that it's essentially given me 3 little branches off of this email. And now we're going to jump into these and kind of show you how you would continue the flow based on those. But there's one little thing that, it might be floating around in your head right now looking at this, is that technically speaking, someone could enter this segment at any time of the day, right? They might be on your website at 11:30 p.m., right? They sign up for a newsletter via a form. we might not want to email them this first message right away, right? We might want to put some kind of delay or control in to make sure that they receive it at a good time of day, right? So, like Brett's talking about, let's say Tuesday at 10 a.m. is our goal of when we want to start this workflow. So, what we can do is actually add a little action here for a wait time. We're going to delete this connector and we're going to add this in. So now when they enter the segment, it's going to enter this wait. And then only when this is satisfied is it actually going to continue and send this first message. So by default, it's waiting 1 hour. That's not really what we want here. But what we can do is say that it has to wait for a certain period of time, but then it's only going to send it within a parameter that we define here, right? So currently it's in GMT. I'm in Mountain Time, so I'm just going to put MST here. Yeah, we'll just do that one. So you control your time zone. In this case, let's say we want to send it between, and you want to give it a little bit of a buffer here, just depending on, server capacity at the time. It's, plus or minus a couple minutes. So let's say I want to make sure that we're going to wait at least for 12 hours. And then it has to send between 9:30 and 10:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. Right. And so you might not even really need this wait time to be so long, just in case they signed up just that morning. If you wanted to say, hey, if they sign up at 6 a.m. on Tuesday, we're cool with it sending in, a couple hours to get them started on this. Maybe you just want to wait for 1 hour. But this will essentially give you the ability to control when this whole thing starts. Right. So when they enter this segment, it's going to wait 1 hour. And then the next time that it's between 9:30 and 10:30 on a Tuesday, it's going to continue and send this email. And so now we've kind of set up that first wait. What we'll do next is take a look at what you might want to do based on their response, right? So a general concept is that delivered but not opened is kind of your worst option. If they opened it, that's pretty good, but they didn't really engage with it. And then if they clicked on something within it, that's an indicator that they're more engaged than either of the other two options. And so you can decide kind of what you want to do based on those actions, right? And that's really depends on your business. Generally, a rule of thumb is that if someone is clicking on things, you might want to engage them a little more. And if someone is not, you might want to engage them a little bit less, right? Because if they're not engaging, you don't want to send them too much stuff or they're going to kind of cross that line and unsubscribe. Whereas someone who is actually clicking and engaging, you want to stay in front of them to make sure that you keep their interest and engagement going forward. But so a handful of different things that we can do here, right, based on these branches. Some people are going to want to do some scoring. We didn't dive into scoring in this webinar, but you can set up scoring for campaigns as a whole or unique scoring rules within a particular workflow. But in this case, right, we'll do something like, add some kind of wait. Right. So again, it might be a similar scenario where we want to wait for, a certain time of day, a certain day of the week, right? Maybe in this case, we want to say they received that. We're cool with this sending any day of the week as long as it's between 9 and 10. And maybe we want to say, hey, we don't want to, send it on the weekend. But the power with these workflows comes in the additional things that you can kind of do after the fact, right? So let's say that we have our wait condition here. I know it's getting a little tight. Let's see if it'll zoom out a bit. So we've got our wait condition here. And let's say if someone actually clicked on this first email, maybe we would want to send them an SMS, right? Something a little bit more direct because they actually gave us a really strong indicator that they're interested in what we're talking about. Whereas maybe someone who only opened the email will go ahead and put in a wait. I'm going to skip the little criteria here just to save you some time. But maybe for them, we actually want to do a wait and then send an email instead, right? So you can essentially build out these workflows, not just to kind of send things in a sequence, but actually build in logic and controls based on the engagement that you're getting back from people and actually branch it even into different channels of communication, right? So you could say, once someone has clicked on 3 emails, add them to my highly engaged list and send them a survey, right? Whereas someone who doesn't open 3 emails in a row, maybe kick them out of this, right? And save that contact for something better later rather than continually emailing them and getting to a place where they actually unsubscribe. And so again, there's a lot of different things you can do within here. The last ones I'll highlight is that you can actually push data back to CRM. This is one we do a lot. So maybe someone clicks 3 emails in a row. Let's make a task on that CRM record for the owner to actually give them a call, right? They're super engaged. Let's pick up the phone, see if we can get a meeting with them set up for whatever they're interested in. So a couple more options there with CRM integration. And then last but not least, there's a sneaky little cog up here that you want to look at for every single workflow. And so these basically do a couple different bits of flow control that are important to take note of. So if you want to have certain exit criteria that kicks someone out of a workflow, oftentimes this is something like their score, right? If their score ever goes above 100, they're now highly engaged, leave them alone and pick up the phone and call them. It could also be based on certain field updates that they make. This one is the main one, though, that I wanted to show in this section. So if a contact no longer meets the criteria, right? And so in this case, this would be where maybe I'm on the phone with Will, example, and they tell me, the salesperson, I'm no longer interested in the newsletter, right? I can actually remove their field here, remove newsletter. That would actually sync over to campaigns. They would exit that segment because they no longer meet the criteria. And then because they no longer meet it, they would remove themselves from the workflow as well. So that's a really, really important one. You almost always, the default is, in my opinion, maybe wrong here. The default is no, keep them in even if they no longer match the criteria. But for me, almost 9 times out of 10, I'm going to actually remove them completely, right? If they've indicated that they're no longer interested and we've removed them from that segment, there's no reason we would keep them in the newsletter welcome series. Because if we do and we email them again, you might push them into the realm of unsubscribing from you as a whole, right? So it's really important to set these things up to not be too in people's faces, especially with topic management now. You can be very careful and get most people just to unsubscribe from topics. But if you're not sensitive to their preferences, they're going to unsubscribe from you as a sender, right? And then you don't really have a way to re-engage with them. Lastly here, you can actually allow people to re-enroll, right? So maybe I left the segment and then I came back. Should it re-enter me into this workflow again? In this case, for a welcome series, I'd probably say no. For other types of long form drip content, you might say yes. But in this case, we'll leave this one off. And at that point, that pretty much covers everything for the workflows. Again, these are going to take some practice. You're always going to want to run a test, right? So maybe you run a test here and you do your weight conditions as really short and just run yourself through it, right? Just to be safe and make sure that, everything's working the way that you anticipated. Once you feel good about it, though, you can go ahead and activate it and push it live to your subscribers. And then at that point, right, they'll pretty much just be running through this consistently. Anytime that a new person, in this case, enters the segment, they'll go ahead and drop right into this. Last little thing I'll show is that you can actually save this as a template. So maybe you had a pretty good game plan for a welcome series and you wanted to apply it to newsletter, product information, and product promotion, right? You kind of have this structure set up and you're just going to swap the content. You can save it as a template and then use it that way going forward to save yourself some time. But really, that should just about cover it here in terms of the email workflows. So with that, I think we're ready to jump into our Q&A.
All right. So our first question is from Artie Beatty. How you doing, Artie? Is there a resource with instructions, guidelines, or best practices for moving from Constant Contact to Zoho Campaigns? Not really. There is a application out there that that will actually do kind of the migration for you. It's called Leads Bridge. You can use that. Although honestly, you can just do a full dump out of Constant Campaigns or out of Constant Contact, import it with all of your tags and into Zoho CRM, and then do the sync that way. I think as earlier what I was talking about, we're about creating those templates using HTML. If you've got a lot of stuff over there, just grab the raw HTML out of Constant Contact, go ahead and put it into Zoho Campaigns. And then from there, you will need to change the insert fields. But other than that, I think you'd be good to go. It's not really that hard to make that move. Wouldn't you say, Tyler?
Yeah, I think so. And I think a lot of times too, if you're moving out of something like Constant Contact, you almost want to think about moving that data to CRM rather than directly to campaigns, right? To make sure that everything is still kind of in home base and CRM, and then pull it over to campaigns to recreate your different segments and groups.
Yeah. And then Jesse Smith asks, are you able to change a deal stage in the CRM as a trigger for a campaign workflow?
Yeah, so you can definitely do this. There's kind of two ways to approach it. So you could either run a function within the CRM where when a deal stage is changed, it basically writes to that related contact, right? And then you're just pulling in that field along with your contact sync, creating your segment off of that and dropping it into the workflow. With the new integration that we showed today, they do actually pull contacts, accounts, and deals into campaigns. I do just want to highlight, and again, we kind of mentioned earlier, we'll probably make a specific video on that. There are some things to look out for in terms of if, imagine you had two different pipelines and maybe two deals going for one contact at a time. The very particular ways to make sure that you don't cross any wires there, and you're kind of using that deal data properly. But short answer is, yeah, you can definitely do that.
All right, and Kevin's asking, can this is an interesting question. I don't think you can. Can I copy a campaign from one campaign's account to another? I have two businesses with separate accounts. As a follow-up, can I copy a workflow from one campaign's account to another as well?
I
I
don't
don't think
believe
you can do
so.
either of those things. Um,
No, I mean,
Gosh, can you?
you
I wonder
could
if
you could like
API.
send a campaign to yourself and then grab the HTML from your email, right? And paste that into a different account. But then any future edits to that template, you'd have to make natively in HTML rather than with the builder. So there's kind of a janky way to do it for the content itself, like the email template. In terms of the workflows, no, unfortunately, you can't copy those to a different account.
All right, and Kevin asks, what would be the shortest sync you would recommend? Are there still issues with instant sync?
Yeah, good question. The context here is that in the old CRM sync methodology, the instant sync had just some sporadic issues. So we would generally set people up on a daily sync instead. With the new sync methodology, Kevin, that you can migrate to, it's all instant sync all the time. And it works really, really well. So nowadays, once you move yourself over to that new integration, which if you haven't yet, you'll have a little kind of pop up at the top of your page. Yeah, you'll want to run it instant, and that's actually the only way that they let you do it now. But they did kind of resolve all those issues that people used to have there.
All right, and then Mark is asking, can segments be created by tags in the CRM, or is the multi-select way better? As a matter of fact, they can be, and we have an
Oh, yeah, we've
entire
actually
video on that.
Yeah, we've
Can
got a
we?
video on that one. It kind of depends. Oftentimes, we'll recommend clients use multi-selects just because users can't add their own options to it. So it depends on like the size of the company, right? Tags can just be a little dangerous because they're more flexible than a multi-select. But yeah, actually, if you check out some of the videos, it should actually be pretty recently, within the last like month and a half. We've got a couple videos up on actually doing exactly this.
Yeah, and I think that's the actual name of the video. Let me take a quick look here. I think it is called. Uh, Automating Zoho Campaigns topic assignments based on tags. So you can go ahead and do that. That was published 3 weeks ago. So you should be able to find it in the recent uploads over on our YouTube channel. And that should get you where you want to go there. Hey, Peter. Peter's asking, using an interest multi-select is an option, tag is an option or a combo, but updating interests would be very cool for marketing automation. A multi-select is a bit of a hassle. Would you kind of agree with that, Tyler?
Yeah, and actually, this is something that is kind of coming down the pipeline with marketing automation and campaigns, and it's essentially the ability to post a webhook as part of one of those workflows we showed. So, like, let's say you sent them a series of emails, and they clicked three in a row. You could actually post a webhook, which would go back to CRM and update a specific field. So they're thinking about this in the same way that you are, kind of that ability to do some stuff in campaigns or marketing automation, and then have it come back and update specific fields in the CRM. So keep an eye out for that, just for kind of ongoing product updates, or probably a future implementation of the week once we're able to do that, because yeah, that would be very, very nice to have.
Yeah. Alrighty, and then Kevin is asking, are the SMS integrations similar to the CRM?
Not really. Like they don't. It doesn't go through like a marketplace app. It's kind of Twilio or nothing when it comes to campaigns. So, am I wrong there, Brett? Is it still? Is it just Twilio? I
No, it's
think.
just Twilio or nothing. There's you're not able to kind of choose if you want to do
So
it
you
like
can
Wing
use the
Central or
same
whatever.
Twilio account if you had it plugged in a CRM and campaigns, but it does work just a little bit differently.
Yeah. All right. And I think that is going to wrap it up. Oh, we got one more. Oh, you're welcome, Artie. So, all right, guys. And with that, we brought it in at exactly an hour, Tyler. We did it. I want to thank
Awesome.
everybody for joining us. We will see you next month for our webinar as well. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, you can head over to club.zenatta.com and drop it in our chat there. We're happy to answer any of your questions. And if you want to talk to Tyler or I, just head over to zenatta.com and go ahead and book a meeting with us.
On the website is where you'll find our weekly podcast, the CRM Zen Show, where we cover all the news in the world of Zoho every single week. We'd love if you'd follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us here on YouTube as well. We'll see you next month for our next monthly webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Get played out by the smooth jazz.